You pull into the dealership lot, keys in hand, expecting a fair number for the car that carried your family for years. The salesman walks around it once. He barely looks under the hood. Then he says the words nobody wants to hear. We can't take that one on trade. Here's what I've learned after years of watching this happen. There are 13 specific models that dealers in 2026 are quietly refusing or lowballing so hard it feels like a slap. And the reason has almost nothing to do with how well you cared for it. It's a secret hiding inside auction data most people never see. I found the first clue 3 winters ago, standing in a cold used car lot outside Cincinnati, watching a manager wave off a spotless sedan like it was radioactive. I asked him why. What he told me sent me digging through auction sheets and repair bulletins for months. By the end of this, you'll know every model on the list, why it happened, and the one move that can save you thousands before your car becomes worthless. And you can check all of it tonight with nothing but the car already sitting in your driveway. Let me start with the quiet one, the car that looks perfect and still gets turned away. It's the early Nissan, with the continuously variable transmission, the Altima, the Sentra, the Rogue, built roughly between 2013 and 2018. On the outside, clean, low miles even. But when that manager in Cincinnati waved one off, he told me something I never forgot. He said, "It's not the car, it's the box inside it." That box is the CVT, made by a supplier called Jatco. And here's the history most owners never heard. Nissan leaned hard into these transmissions to squeeze out better fuel numbers back in the late 2000s. On paper, brilliant. In the real world, these units started overheating, shuddering, and failing sometimes before 100,000 miles. Nissan quietly extended the warranty on some of them to 10 years, which tells you everything. Companies don't extend warranties out of kindness. They do it when the failure rate scares them. So here's why the dealer won't touch it. A replacement CVT can run $3,000 to $5,000 installed. When a used car manager looks at your clean Altima, he isn't seeing your careful ownership. He's seeing a coin flip on a $4,000 repair he'll have to eat before resale. Therefore, he offers you scrap money or nothing at all. And this is where the real machinery starts to show itself. Because the dealer isn't guessing, he's reading numbers you've never been allowed to see. Which brings me to the part almost nobody understands about how your trade-in value is really decided. There's a place called the Mannheim Auction. It's the largest wholesale car auction network in the country, and it's where dealers actually buy and sell each other's trade-ins. Every week they publish an index and detailed sheets showing exactly what each model is fetching. When a certain model starts failing in the field, its auction price collapses months before the public ever notices. The dealer sees that collapse in real time. You don't. So, when he lowballs you, he's not being cruel. He's reading a scoreboard that's been kept hidden from the very people it affects most. Now, who benefits from you not seeing that scoreboard? Hold that thought, because it gets worse the deeper we go. Let me give you the next 3 models, because they all share the same buried flaw. The Ford Focus and the Ford Fiesta, built roughly 2011 through 2016. Beautiful little cars, great on gas, and carrying one of the most troubled transmissions ever put in an economy car. Ford called it the PowerShift, a dual-clutch automatic meant to feel sporty and save fuel. Instead, it shuddered, slipped, and jerked. Ford faced a massive class action settlement over it, and internal documents that came out later showed engineers had flagged the problems early. Owners reported the same shudder over and over, and many got multiple clutch replacements under warranty. Here's the cruel part for you today. Even a Focus that was repaired, even one running fine right now, carries that reputation into the auction lane, and the dealer knows buyers walk away the moment they hear PowerShift. Therefore, your clean little Ford, the one that never left you stranded, gets treated like a problem child. I've watched owners knock down $2,000 on trade for a car that was running perfectly the day they drove it in. But there's a pattern forming here, and I want you to see it. Every model on this list so far shares one thing. It was built to chase a number. Better fuel economy, lower price, a spec sheet that looked good in an ad. And the corner that got cut to hit that number is the exact corner now killing your resale value. Keep that in mind, because the next one cost people even more. The Jeep Cherokee and several Chrysler and Dodge models from about 2014 through 2017, the ones fitted with the 9-speed automatic. This transmission was supposed to be a marvel. 9 gears, smoother shifts, better mileage. But it launched with software so troubled that the shifting felt confused, hunting between gears, sometimes lurching. There were recalls and repeated reflashes. And once a transmission earns a reputation for confusion, the auction buyers remember. So let me snap this loop shut before I open a bigger one. The reason these specific models get refused isn't age, and it isn't mileage. It's a known, documented, expensive-to-fix failure that shows up in the wholesale data long before it shows up in your driveway. The dealer is protecting himself from a repair bill, battery replacement not covered. I'm talking about the early electric and plug-in hybrid cars. The first generation Nissan Leaf, built roughly 2011 to 2015. The early Chevy Volt and the Chevy Bolt from certain years. And here is the history that most buyers were never told when they proudly drove these home. These early electric cars used battery chemistry and cooling designs that simply weren't ready for a decade of daily use. The first Leaf had no active thermal management on its battery, which means in hot climates the battery degraded fast. Some owners in warm states lost a third or more of their range within just a few years. And a replacement battery pack, when you can even find one, can cost more than the entire car is worth, $5,000, $8,000, sometimes more. The Bolt had its own chapter. There was a large recall over battery fire risk, and for a time owners were told to park away from buildings and not charge to full. Imagine trying to trade that in. The dealer opens his laptop, sees the recall history and the battery replacement cost, and his answer is immediate. No thank you. So here's the loop closing. An electric car with a worn battery isn't a car with a small problem. To a dealer, it's a car with one giant problem that costs more than the vehicle. Therefore, these are among the first models refused outright. But this is where the villain finally steps fully into the light. Because these early electric cars were sold with enormous promises. Save the planet. Save on gas. The future is here. What the buyers weren't handed was the truth about how fast that battery would fade and how impossible it would be to replace affordably. The marketing was loud. The fine print was silent. And now, years later, the ordinary owner is the one holding a car nobody wants, while the companies that oversold it have already moved on to the next model and the next round of promises. That's the pattern underneath every single name on this list. Someone made a number look good on the day of the sale, and the bill for that number comes due years later, in your hands, at trade-in time. Now let me give you the models that got refused for a different reason. One that's almost worse. The old luxury cars, the out-of-warranty German sedans, older BMW 7 Series, older Mercedes S-Class, certain Audi models, and the Land Rover and Range Rover from years back. These cars were the crown of the road when they were new, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 new. And today you can buy some of them for the price of a used economy car. That low price is a trap, and the dealers know it. Here's the secret. A luxury car depreciates faster than almost anything on wheels, not because it stops working, but because everything on it costs a fortune to fix once the warranty ends. An air suspension unit, a complex electronic module, a cooling system with a dozen failure points. On these older Range Rovers especially, the repair bills became legendary among mechanics. So when one rolls onto the trade lot, the manager isn't seeing luxury. He's seeing a stack of repair invoices waiting to happen. Therefore, he refuses it or offers you almost nothing, even though the car glides down the road like silk. I want you to feel how strange that is. A car that costs more than most people's first house waved away at the curb. That's the power of the hidden scoreboard. And it leads me straight to the group of small cars that got refused for the opposite reason. The Mitsubishi Mirage, the Fiat 500, the Smart for 2, the Dodge Journey, the Chrysler 200. These are the little cars and the bargain cars, and they get refused because there's almost no wholesale demand for them at all. The Smart for Two was pitched as the clever city car, but the resale market for a two-seat microcar is tiny, and dealers know they'll sit on the lot for months. The Fiat 500 developed a reputation for electrical gremlins and expensive parts for such a small car. The Dodge Journey and Chrysler 200 were fleet and rental favorites, which floods the auction lanes and crushes their value. That's the whole trick. If you've been following this and thinking there has to be a deeper system behind all of it, a way to understand not just these 13 cars, but the entire hidden logic of how value gets stripped from ordinary people at the point of sale, that's exactly what I went after in my books. Reset, Deep Leverage, and the Full Stack. Each one pulls back a different layer of the same scoreboard. The same data asymmetry that lets a dealer lowball your car is running in the background of a lot of financial decisions most people never question. You can find all three in the description below, and I'd start with whichever title matches where you feel most in the dark right now. Now let me hand you the models that hit the hardest, because the next group involves the most expensive 4 words in the car business. So let me close this loop. Cars get refused for 2 opposite reasons. Either they're expensive to fix, or nobody wants to buy them at any price. Both roads end at the same place. The dealer says no, and you drive home feeling like your car turned to dust overnight. But it didn't turn to dust. And this is the turn I promised you. Because if you're sitting there thinking, this is fine for people with money and options, but I've got one of these exact cars and no way to fix it and no room to negotiate, then the next part is built specifically for you. This is the part that costs you nothing and can be done this week with the car already in your driveway. Here's the first move, and it's free. Before you ever drive to a dealer, you need to read the same scoreboard he reads. You can't log into the wholesale auction, but you can get remarkably close. Pull up the free valuation tools, and more importantly, search the actual private sale listings for your exact model, year, and mileage in your area. Not the dealer asking prices. The real sold and asking prices between regular people, right down the range. That number, the private party number, is almost always thousands higher than the trade-in number, because when you sell it yourself, you cut out the middleman who's protecting himself from that repair risk. Second move, also free. Gather every service record you can find. If you replace that troubled CVT, if that transmission was rebuilt under warranty, if the battery was serviced or the recall was completed, print the proof. Here's why it matters more than you think. The dealer assumes the worst because he has no information. A private buyer, handed a folder showing the exact repair that scares everyone else was already done on your car, will pay real money for that peace of mind. You are turning the reputation from a liability into your advantage. The very thing that makes the dealer run is the thing you've already fixed and can prove. Third move, and this one costs almost nothing. Sell to the buyer who actually wants the flaw. Those failed CVT cars, those PowerShift Fords, those old luxury sedans, there are independent mechanics and hobbyists who buy them specifically because they can do the repair themselves for a fraction of the cost. They're not scared of the transmission. They're not scared of the air suspension. They see a good car with one known fix, and they'll pay you far more than the dealer's insulting number because they're not paying a shop $3,000 to do what they can do in their own garage on a Saturday. I watched a man do exactly this with an early Leaf everyone told him was worthless. He found a buyer who wanted it for short city trips where the reduced range didn't matter at all. He got triple the dealer offer. Triple. For the car they said was garbage. So the tools are already in your hands. The private listings, the service folder, the right buyer. None of it costs a dime, and all of it can start tonight. But I've saved the most important piece for last, because it's the one thing that changes the entire game, and almost nobody knows it exists. Here's the secret finale. The thing that manager in Cincinnati finally admitted to me when I kept asking why. It comes straight from the wholesale side of the business, and it's tied to that Mannheim auction data I mentioned. Dealers don't just look at what a model is worth today, they look at the trend line. They look at whether a model's value is falling slowly or falling off a cliff. And there is a specific window every year when these values drop the fastest and hardest. It's the trade-off between the model year changeover and the tax season. Here's how it works, and this is the part they'd rather you never learned. Used car values are not flat across the calendar. They swing. Historically, the strongest demand for used cars, and therefore the highest prices, lands in the late winter and early spring, roughly from February into April, when tax refunds hit and people go shopping for cars with cash in hand. And the weakest window, when values sag, tends to come in the late fall and early winter, when the new models arrive and the lots are trying to clear old inventory. So the single most valuable move you can make, if you own one of these 13 refused models, is this. Do not wait. Every month you hold one of these cars, its known problem gets closer to becoming a real failure, and its auction value keeps sliding on that trend line. But you also want to time your sale into the strong demand window, not the weak one. If you can list it privately heading into that late winter tax refund season with your service folder in hand, you catch the exact moment when ordinary buyers have cash and are hungry, and before your particular model's reputation drags the price down any further. That's the whole secret. The value isn't just in the car, it's in the timing and the scoreboard. The dealer has always known both. Now you do too. And once you see it, you understand the trade-in counter for what it really is. It's a place where the person with the data quietly wins, and the person without it drives home poorer, thanking them for the privilege. Let me tie this all together, because the thread runs through every one of these 13 models. The early Nissan CVT cars, the Ford Focus and Fiesta with the PowerShift, the Jeep Cherokee and its cousins with the 9-speed, the first electric Leaf, Volt, and Bolt, the out-of-warranty German luxury sedans and the old Range Rovers, the Mitsubishi Mirage, the Fiat 500, the Smart 42, the Dodge Journey, and the Chrysler 200. Different cars, different flaws, one single truth. Each was sold on a promise, each hit a cost, and each is now being quietly refused by the very industry that profited from selling it to you in the first place. And here's what I want you to really sit with. The dealer refusing your car isn't the villain of the story. He's just the last man standing when the music stops. The real story started years earlier, in a boardroom where someone decided that hitting a fuel number or a price point or a flashy spec mattered more than whether that car would still be worth something when you needed to move on from it. You were never told. The wholesale data was kept on their side of the counter, and the whole system was built so that on the day you finally needed the truth, you'd have to take their word for what your own property was worth. But not anymore, because the same information that lets them lowball you is now sitting in your hands. You can read the private sale market. You can prove your repairs. You can find the buyer who wants exactly what everyone else fears. And you can time your sale to the season when demand is highest instead of lowest. That's not a trick. That's just refusing to be the one person at the table without the cards. I think about that cold lot outside Cincinnati more than I probably should. Because the man who runs it wasn't a bad man. He just knew something I didn't, and he was never going to volunteer it. It took me months of digging through auction sheets and warranty bulletins and old settlement documents to learn what he already carried around in his head. And the moment I finally understood it, I felt something close to anger. Not at him, at how easy it had been, all those years, for the rest of us to be kept in the dark about the value of the very thing parked in our own driveways. So if you own one of these 13, don't panic and don't rush down to trade it in on the word of a stranger reading a screen you're not allowed to see. Do the 3 free things first. Read the real private market. Build your folder. Find the buyer who wants the flaw. And aim your sale at that late winter window when the cash comes out. Do that, and the car they called worthless can put real money back in your pocket, sometimes double or triple what the counter offered. What you just recovered isn't a trick about cars. It's the simple, almost forgotten idea that you're allowed to know what your own things are worth before you let someone else tell you. That's the whole game. And it's been true a lot longer than any of these cars have been on the road. If you're the kind of person who's always suspected that the real numbers get kept on the other side of the counter, that the promises made at the sale rarely match the truth years later, then you already understand what this channel is about. We're just a group of people quietly taking back the knowledge that was supposed to stay buried. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 13 models is sitting in your driveway right now, or did you own one of them once and get burned at trade-in time? Tell me the model and the year, and tell me what the dealer offered you, because I read these and I want to know how bad it really got out there. Drop it in the comments below. And tell me what part of the country you're watching from, because these auction values swing differently from region to region, and I'm building a picture of where it's worst. If this handed you something you didn't have this morning, subscribe and stand with the folks who are done being kept in the dark about the value of their own property. Because next time, I'm opening up the one repair that dealers secretly do to trade-ins before they resell them at double the price, the cheap fix they never tell you about, the one you could have done yourself for less than $40. You won't want to miss what's hiding behind that one. I hope this helped you keep more money in your pocket. This video was just the overview, but the full trade-in defense playbook lives inside the Old Ways Society. In there, you can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself. A real person. And you're not alone. Plenty of Old Ways folks are already inside. Just point your phone at the code on screen. Cancel anytime with one click. Come join me.